Welcome back to the Cafe My Uniqas. On this Uniqa rant, I'm gonna be talking about the phrase "you don't look autistic" from multiple angles, and why this phrase is a bit odd and very ignorant. And on this rant, I'm not gonna be scripting it heavily like I did the last ones. Rather, I'm purely gonna be going off of bullet points. And so let's get to the first point now, shall we? Okay, so the first angle I see most people approach when they say you don't look autistic is for superficial reasons, and it's mostly for appearance. It's like when they think about an autistic person, what comes to mind is a person like Sheldon Cooper, or like Sheldon Cooper's girlfriend or partner or whatever, where they wear covered baggy clothes. And that may be the case for a certain subsection of autistic people, because their sensory issues may make them absolutely despise clingy clothes because it triggers certain sensory issues and it will exacerbate a person's meltdown. Yet, like I said before and I will say again, autism is a spectrum, so that means not everybody would follow this rule of thumb when it comes to dressing for their sensory needs. Sometimes you may see certain Uniqas who may be autistic or otherwise experience sensory issues. They kind of wear styles that kind of aren't traditionally sensory friendly. Take goth, for example, where certain styles of goth require wearing leather or tight corsets that go around the abdomen, and chokers, as well as fishnets or leggings that go on that cling tightly onto the legs. And for other autistic people, they would say no, it has all of their sensory nodes in it. Whereas certain autistic people, they may gravitate towards that style because either they still may have sensory issues about it, but it's not to the point where it's meltdown levels, but they could handle the sensory discomfort. Or if a person's sensory issues don't come from clothes at all, rather it may come from food or even scents, and so they could dress a certain way like that and not feel any sort of issue whatsoever, because it's not their main sensory ick, if that makes sense. And the other angle of this "you don't look autistic" phrase is that it also includes attractive people who don't look autistic, because they assume that they aren't autistic simply because they're either attractive or average, when, mind you, autistic is a mental condition. It doesn't appear on a person's physical features or physical body at all, like certain other mental conditions like Down syndrome do. And it's honestly weird why a person would imply a person doesn't look autistic purely because of their looks and outer appearances. Autistic people can't be attractive or can't not groom themselves properly, which they very much can. They just have to do it in different ways. Some autistic people know how to do makeup. Some autistic people know their way around beauty. In fact, some autistic people have special interest in beauty, and that's why they look a certain way. It's because they've obsessed over certain beauty stuff, because it's their special interest. It's what they do. In fact, I actually saw a girl who was divulging tips because she was autistic and had a special interest in beauty. I remember featuring her on my community post, but I guess she got her video taken down, which is unfortunate. But if y'all were in the olden days of my channel, y'all would know that I posted that video, and that alone is proof that autistic people can look attractive and still be autistic, or look average and look like regular people, because we are people, duh. And that's even more proof of how odd this phrase is. Don't you even think? Don't you have brains? Anyways, removing ourselves from the superficial for a bit, some people say this phrase in terms of behavior, saying a a person doesn't look autistic because of their behavior, when in actuality almost any autistic people could look like anything, no matter their support need level. And so it's so weird because like they address certain people who like carry themselves in a certain way because they assume that like autistic people are like in this infantilized state of being, saying how like saying like they aren't autistic because they don't have like a special interest in Bluey or trains, when no, that's not the case. Stop assuming. Like, some people treat autistic people as like perpetual forever kids, like Peter Pans, yet when they see like an autistic people, like say, I don't know, going to like a bar or something, or like going to like a very crazy concert with like lights and like LSD or something, and they become like shocked because like, how are you autistic if you're going to the bar? Autistic people don't drink. They're autistic people don't drink. And I'm just like, autism is a spectrum, so where one's an autistic person's yuck, maybe another person's yum. Like, certain autistic people actually like loud music. They just don't like unpredictable loud noises. Some autistic people can handle crowds, and other autistic people cannot. They rather like be in a library or like be at home. So some autistic people engaged in like very adult behaviors, maybe because they may have a special interest in it. Like, an autistic person may have a special interest in wine, and so they become like a professional wine taster and know almost everything about wine, whereas another autistic person may have like a anime figure collection and like know everything there is to know about like anime figures and stuff. Both may be autistic. Both may have similar amounts of support needs, yet they have different special interests, and therefore one may be perceived as a bit more autistic than the other purely because of how those special interests are, which is crazy to me. So crazy. And to add on to how this "you don't look autistic" phrase like applies to behavior, let's take stims into the equation. You see, some autistic people may have stereotypical stims, very obvious stims, especially if they're low masking or no masking at all, like hand flap, spin around, do all sorts of stuff. However, not every autistic people's stims are obvious. Like, some may do like hair twirling, finger tapping, humming, and whatnot. And people will say they don't look autistic because most of these stims are like what neurotypical people do, when even though they may do it as at a higher frequency. And I'm gonna use myself as an example for this. The thing is, I used to not believe that I was autistic or even know that I was even like semi-diagnosed autistic when I was like a bit younger. It's because like I didn't have those stereotypical stims that the people say on the internet like before. But then after I got my diagnosis, I realized that those dances that I was like repeatedly doing, those were stims. Like, every breath, every second, I like do like a dance of a choreography that I know. And it didn't matter where I'd be. I'd literally be out. Wow. I'd literally be sitting and I'd be doing like the choreography, like I couldn't like stop myself from doing it. Then I realized that it was like a stem of mine, my main stems of mine. And like, what's odd is that like there's like people like all of a sudden adopting like, oh, this vocal stem or something, when they're just like repeating a meme. And I'm just like, sure, okay. That's true that neurotypical people can do certain stims. It's just that like, I hope you keep the same energy towards a autistic person who's doing like a vocal stem. But unfortunately, most of the time they don't, and I'm just like, anyways, I'm going to just like conclude. Like, this phrase is so like annoying and bad for like multiple reasons. For number one, it paints autism as one color, one stroke, when as I mentioned, as all autistic people mentioned, it's a spectrum. Like, if you met one autistic person, you just met one autistic person. If you meet another, you get a completely different experience. As well as, like, people like infantilize us too much. Like, sure, we may not understand certain social cues or certain ways of doing things, but it doesn't mean that we're like completely defenseless. Like, some autistic people be like wild, too wild, too wild. In fact, it's yet y'all may not see that, or y'all may not see them as even autistic, is because you have this infantilized assumption about us when it's not the case. And also, what's the most horrible thing about this phrase is that this phrase, "you don't look autistic," may even get into the mindset of certain physicians or certain doctors or certain therapists, saying how, like, since this person doesn't look autistic, we shouldn't like give them like accommodations or anything, when we should absolutely should. Like, just because their autism doesn't present a certain way, or they're like a low support needs autistic, doesn't mean that they need no accommodations. They still do. They either need it differently or need it a bit less than a higher support needs autistic, but they still need them. All I'm saying is that autism is a spectrum, and people ought to respect it. Paint it with like just one color and say that the people outside of this like one color is like not autistic, when we in fact are. Anyways, thank you to come into my tech talk, and so subscribe and keep that unique and magical life. Bye!